What's up, Kris Krohn here, and today we're talking about war and real estate. In fact, I'm here in San Antonio with my family for a little day trip. We're visiting the Alamo because I want to teach my kids some lessons about what does it mean to remember the Alamo. If you look at our world today, we've got war erupting all over the world, and you might be wondering, how is that going to affect real estate? Should I sell what I have? Should I buy more of what I have? What's going to happen? There are actually three factors that you need to be aware of.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
You can see what's going on, right? It's all over the news. It's all over the world. It's what Putin is doing to Ukraine. And you might be thinking, man, I thought the age of imperialism was over. Do we really have big countries beating up on small countries to take their resources and try to assimilate them into their country? And yes, this is happening today, and you better believe that this is affecting the game of real estate. It's affecting the stock market. It's affecting crypto. It's affecting everything. And so today I'm going to be doing a deep dive with you on three important ways that real estate and your finances are going to be affected by what's happening on the other side of the world, especially if it gets closer to home, right? The sanctions that countries are imposing on Russia, is that going to create greater inflation because it's increasing the cost of goods? Or are we talking about war actually coming to your home front? That tall dude right there, that's David Bowie, and we are right outside the Alamo. And if you're not familiar with what happened here, it was kind of Texas's one of their last stands. It was a critical battle that they lost where they were fighting for their independence from Mexico, and then ultimately they got annexed into the United States. And, crazy things happen in war times, especially to the value of real estate, because when uncertainty and fear is really, really high, that can really shock the stock market. That can shock the crypto market. We've already seen that this year, but does it shock the real estate market? All right, check it out. So I'm right outside the wall of the Alamo. We're waiting in line to go inside. And I've got my kid's private teacher here because we'll take the jet and we take education on the road. We never know where we're going to be in the world, but we take the jet and we'll spend a day somewhere in the world. We do some pretty epic traveling because my wife and I, we have this goal and this dream of basically taking our kids' education in the world. The whole reason why I became financially free through real estate, and in fact achieved that independence by the age of 26, was because my wife and I had some way bigger dreams. And one of those was, we think privately we can do better than the public school education. And so it's been a goal of ours for many years, and now we're living that goal with our four amazing children. So we're here checking it out, and I'm actually going to ask Miss Dana, our kid's teacher herself, what really happened and why do people say, remember the Alamo, and how did that help Texas?
What's so great about dumb old Texas?
What did you say?
This had the most cannons west of the Mississippi. So
Where are the cannons on here?
Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
And
17, 18.
18? How long did they last?
13 days they held up.
13 days. And why did they say, remember the Alamo?
Everyone that sacrificed their lives here were holding off the Mexican army as long as they could. No one even thought they'd last a day. But that gave Sam Houston time up north and to the east to gather the troops and really do the final. That final battle with Santa Ana only lasted 18 minutes.
So what happens to America after a war? Well, it's been a long time for us. Let's take a look at where we do have some data. We're going to take a look at World War II. What happened when the GIs came home? Check this out. Immediately following World War II, real estate demand surged as GIs returned home, eager to settle down and build their families. At the same time, there was a dramatic expansion in civilian employment that led to increased demand for commercial real estate across the board, and it made those real estate values rise. So you might think, okay, so real estate, that's a function of war, right? Not so. It actually just goes back to supply and demand. And when these GIs came home and they started increasing their families, guess what that did? That population increase led to increase of price of real estate. So understand that when people make babies and people move here and immigration laws are such that population is rising faster than we have homes available, that will always cause real estate prices to rise. It's the same thing that we're experiencing right now. We're missing millions of homes across the United States. And because of that, who cares if there's war? What it means first and foremost is that we have to satisfy that demand. There's massive demand right now in the game of real estate, and it's going to take years, probably 5, 7, or 10 years before we're able to actually satisfy that. So just like then, just like now, we're going to see, regardless of what happens in Russia, Ukraine, or how much that extends, that as long as population is saying we need more real estate, prices are going to rise. And check it out, I am directly outside the Alamo. And in real estate, outside of supply and demand, we got to talk about the 3 other factors that really have an impact on what war does to the game of real estate. Because what do you think happened to Texas during the time of the Alamo? Well, I'm going to tell you right now that what war breeds is the first point, which is fear, doubt, and uncertainty. And here's how Realtor.com weighed in. They said a potential war would make Americans less likely to buy a home. It increases uncertainty about the future. So when there's fear, people typically hang on to their money. So there's a chance that even though we're missing millions of homes, that some of those people might back off and say, hey, you know what? We changed our minds. We don't really care so much. Do I think it's going to impact it 5 million homes worth? Probably not, but it is a factor. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be trapped inside these walls for 13 days, cannon fire back and forth, the entire Mexican army right there, and eventually they are going to win? I think that would be honestly really, really terrifying, and it really just speaks to that point of what war does to the mindset of people. But frankly, it's not the only impact. Here's the second one. It's interest rates. You see, when there's fear, when there's doubt, when there's uncertainty, it affects the buying patterns, and the Fed typically steps in to influence purchasing habits. A war is likely to push down interest rates, affecting home prices and the number of homes for sale. Well, guess what? Prior to Putin basically leaning on Ukraine and basically creating war, the Fed had decided already this year that they're going to basically bump up rates quarter over quarter over quarter. And I did a video earlier basically saying we're probably going to see a 0.5 point increase by the end of the year. Well, is that going to keep happening right now? If there's enough fear and doubt and worry in the streets, and all of a sudden buying stops, the government says, well, all we have to do is lower the rates, and that should help us manipulate getting people focused again on their financial futures and buying real estate, because cheap money makes it more appealing for people to want to get into a home. Check out here at the Alamo how thick some of these walls are that were designed to create massive fortification, right? And the third point that I want you to understand about war is what happens to real estate in a conflict zone. Listen, if you've been watching the news and you've been seeing the terrible bombings, the air raids, what's happened to so many of their beautiful buildings, they've just been decimated. You can imagine that that is going to make real estate go on sale like a fire sale. Check this out. About conflict zones. If the war were brought to a home front, land and property in conflict zones would be devalued and fire sale prices would be likely. Conversely, this would create general scarcity and could be good for those that are not in the fire zone. Now, we don't have a conflict zone here in America yet, or right now, hopefully ever, but you know, over there in Ukraine, those neighborhoods that are bombed, man, fire sale means that those prices, the real estate's gonna sell for like pennies on the dollar. It also means that where people still wanna live in their home, that the unbombed areas could actually see the opposite. They could actually see the prices of real estate really grow through the roof. So there were 3 things going on. You have Texas that had fought for 10 years to be its own country. You have Mexico that wanted Texas back. And you had America that wanted Texas to be a part of the Union.
Kind of. Like, this never was Texas by itself. It was always Mexico until this battle and the battle after this battle. But this battle allowed the second battle to be victorious.
Have you guys ever heard the phrase, we lost the battle, but we won the war?
Yeah.
All the battles make up a war. So this is so famous because it was a lost battle that allowed them to win the war. When you play chess, sometimes you sacrifice a very important piece if it means you can take the king.
King of England.
Obviously, today's video is all about real estate strategy. It's all about how you play the game and how you win. And when they say, remember the Alamo, part of that war cry was, hey, the Alamo bought us 13 days to gather our armies so that the next battle could be the final battle so that we could actually win in under 18 minutes. Well, guess what? Real estate here in America prices are going to keep soaring for the next several years, even if there's a lack of confidence. That's my opinion on the matter, which means that strategically, now is the time to get in the game. What pawns should you sacrifice? 401ks, IRAs, even equity in your own home, because imagine if you knew that real estate was going to double in value over the next 5 years, let's just say. How much real estate would you want to own? Hopefully you're saying, I wouldn't want to own 10 homes, 20 homes, 50 homes. And there's a way for you to do that intelligently. Let's talk real strategy. If real estate is the place to be and its prices are going to keep going up, how do you get in the game? Most people, they don't have a strategy because they say, well, Kris, I got a job, I got a career, I have a family, I've got friends, I got hobbies, and I don't want to make real estate my hobby, so what can I possibly do? What if I told you that you had the option to partner with me potentially? If you partner with me, I'd do 100% of the work. And what if I also told you that if we just bought one house now, that I could produce a multi-million-dollar retirement for you when that time came? If that's intriguing, there's a link below, and I can show you a strategy game where I'll do 100% of the work. You do have to put up the money, right? Through a 401k or an IRA or equity in your home. It's worth learning about. I've done it 5,000 times. So the good news is I have track record, and that track record predates 2008's Great Recession. Obviously, what's happened since then. In fact, people all over the world partner with me so they can access my team of 200 experts, my billion-dollar track record on how to do that. So if that's interesting to you, click the link below and let me show you how we're gonna crush it and win in the game of real estate. Hey, thanks for watching today's video. I hope that it helps you understand that even though there's a lot of uncertainty and war times happening out there, that it doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad for real estate. Right now we're experiencing so much of the opposite unless you're in that conflict zone. Right now, over the next 5 years, you've got to ask yourself, what's the greatest strategy, the most intelligent way that I can play? And right now that link below is one of those ways that you can do that. Other than that, being a subscriber is another great strategy because I've got videos happening all day long showing you how to build wealth exactly how I am in real estate, business, and so many other things. Finally, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. But more importantly, if you want to know how I started my whole real estate portfolio, recently took my CEO on a journey, got in my limo, drove around and showed him some of my first homes. Check it out.
James Bowie, right here. He gained a reputation as a deadly duelist with a knife. Look at his knife. Wondering if the Bowie knife was named after this guy.